have an event this weekend, and I figured I would take you along with me in packing for the event, what I bring, some supplemental materials that I use, so let's dive in. If you don't know who I am, hi, my name is Katlyn Duncan, and I am a hybrid author, which means I publish both traditional and independent books. Here on my channel, we talk about the writing process and all the bookish things. So if that interests you at all, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up so I know to create more content like this for you. In a previous video of mine, I talked about some of the stuff that I bring with me to my author events. These are live in-person events, and I figured I would go a little more in depth and show you how my process has evolved since then and some things, tips and tricks that I do along the way. So this is my main tool. I love this thing. It is a little tote, and it has the wheels that can actually go upstairs and stuff, so that's really helpful, especially when you're carrying a box full of books. First things first, I track all my book sales through Square when I do events. So I'm going to pull up my iPad here, and I like to just do an inventory every time I do these events, and I like to put everything in here just to make sure I have enough of everything. I have 5 of my books on here. Those are paperbacks. Those are what I typically sell in in-person events, and I'll show you sort of what I do for ebooks and all that. So I have 12 copies of Her Buried Lives, and I'm just going to make sure that within my Square it says 12. This book set is done, and I'm going to move on to... What are you doing, bud? Oh. Where's the toys? Where's the toys? Oh, honey. Catastrophe, that was. When it comes to display books, I don't like to sell my display books. I just like to have them on the table so people can touch them, and then I'm not selling books that like other people have touched. And I like to keep them separate from my display copies, which are always on my bookshelf, so I know where they are, and I know not to sell those, and it just makes things a little easier for me. So Wrapped Up for Christmas is a traditionally published book, and I had purchased these copies from my publisher at cost a while ago, or right before COVID, so I didn't go to any in-person events, so I'm just updating that. My count was the same from last time, which was good. So this is another set of traditionally published books, Barefoot on the Beach, Summer Romance, and all of these are good to go. And then my baby, my debut reverted book, which now has a fun sticker on it from the Connecticut Author Project. This won an award this year, and I'm so super duper proud. So I put little stickers on all of them. I found a seller on Etsy, and I didn't really want to have some that like had the award on it and some that didn't, so I think the sticker is the perfect happy medium for this. So let me count them. 10, 11. All right, and I also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 copies of Take Back Your Book. Everything is good in terms of my books. So one thing that I like to do when I pack them is to pack them spines out. I read somewhere when I was actually packing up my house that that's an appropriate way to pack books. So it's basically what I do. Now when it comes to this box, there's like a little opening on the side here. I try to keep my books away from that because I don't want it to snag the covers at all. I would probably say that's my only pet peeve, is just making sure that none of the books get damaged during transport. All right, so I got my thrillers, my women's fiction, and we're gonna try to fit the rest of these into the box. A little bit of Tetris playing here. I managed to get everything in. I like to leave a little spot in here to put some of my smaller things, and I have a good several inches left to be able to put more things. Some of the supplemental materials that I like to bring too are bookmarks. So I have a stack of bookmarks here. I'm actually running pretty low. And on the back is a QR code. This is like one of my favorite phrases. And then the book cover on the back. Bookish people love bookmarks. And I have a certain type of pen that I use for signing. So I always make sure to keep this in my event area. So I have a couple backups, and because I'm like terrified that there's not going to be, that it'll run out or something. I like to bring Post-it notes to have people write their name on it. It's typically if there's a lot of people around and I can't really pay attention, I want to make sure I write their name correctly. I'll have them write it on that. And then I have little reading stickers. I just got these on Amazon. I can put the link in the description. They're just like bookish stickers. And I like to always have these on my table. So people can just come by and take a sticker. It's usually an easy start to a conversation. I also have my Square reader in here. This is the contactless one that has like a little stand. So this takes chip, it takes tap, it takes Google Pay and Apple Pay. So I always make sure to have these out sort of on top so I know I have to charge my Square reader before I go, because sometimes we don't have access to an outlet and that would just be tragic. So I have this little clear bin inside of this big clear bin that I like to keep everything in. It's like, and so I don't like not take it with me. I do have a little black tablecloth. I sort of wish I picked a different color, but it's okay. So I have a tablecloth if I need it. Some places have tablecloths already or offer them. So I like to put this sort of in that middle area for in between my books, just to keep everything snug and in place without like, you know, bending the spines or anything. And then if I need it, I'll use it. If I don't, I don't. So in terms of like paper stuff that I bring, I always bring a sign up sheet for my newsletter. It's really like the most basic thing that just says name and email, and then there's like a little consent thing up here. It just says, by signing the sheet, you agree to receiving Katlyn Duncan's bi-weekly newsletter via email, just so that they know what the frequency is and everything. And if they don't want to sign up, they don't have to. I don't pressure anyone to do it, but I like to have it available, especially if people don't use QR codes or anything. Paper and pen is always good. The next thing I have are these little acrylic stands. It's like a letter size, and I display this on the table with my price list. So it took me a while to sort of like figure all this out, but I had like a bunch of pieces of paper on my table and like there wasn't a nice way to display it. So I basically put one-stop shopping. So as you can see here, I have my price list, and the more you buy, the more you save. And then I have all of my Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo for payments. Obviously I take cash and I take everything for the Square reader as well. But one thing that I am trying to sort of train my readers to do is shop from my website. So I have this little thing on the bottom that says prefer ebooks or audio. I have those too, and they can scan this and they can go directly to my store on my website. So that just gives people another option. You know, maybe they don't like paperbacks, maybe they like ebooks, and I make more money with people buying from my digital store. Now that does not include my traditional books. It's only my independent books. In terms of traditional, I guess they could just go to their favorite ebook retailer. I can't sell those on my website. And then on the back here, I saw someone had done this, and at some of these events, you know, they have panels, or, you know, you got to use the restroom or something. So I actually like flip this and I write, it says, sorry, I missed you. I'll be back at or in. And I'll just put like 5, and I'll actually write on this and it'll say like 5 minutes or 2 o'clock if I'm doing a panel or something. And then it just easily, I just flip it when I get back. So that's just a little extra thing I picked up along the way, and I think it's super important too, because if someone is interested in your book and you're like nowhere to be found, usually people aren't going to stick around. So if, you know, they see a sign that they're like, oh, she'll be back in 5 minutes, I'll make a loop and come back in 5 minutes. Now make sure that if you do write a time down, you are back in that time, just in the case that you have people who want to see you. So this is how that looks, and then I will flip it the other way if I do leave my table. I like to slip my newsletter sign up into this so it protects it during travel, and then I just kind of scoot it on top and it goes against the back. So again, we're protecting the books, we're kind of building a case around them. Hand sanitizer, super important. I always bring that with me, and then I also have a candy bin. I always bring this. It's just one of those things that will draw people to a table. And then I also have a pass for the event that I had to pick up. I did a vlog all about that a couple weeks ago. So the last thing I usually pack up are my bags. I had these bags printed on Etsy and they're not super expensive. So it has my tagline for my YouTube channel, All the Bookish Things, and then my website. So anytime someone purchases a book, they get a bag. It's basically product placement. So when people are walking around these events and they see this cute little bag, And half the time, a lot of people don't have bags. So they'll be like, hey, where'd you get that? And, you know, they can point to my table and say, oh, buy a book there and you get a bag. And one thing I'm not sure I'm going to use is I have these little easels. I got them at Five Below. I used this for my first event earlier in the fall and they looked nice, but then I figured out a different way to have my books. But I always just bring it anyway, just in case I need like a little more depth or something like that, or just to display it a little differently. And it doesn't really take up a ton of room. And then the final things that I'll pack, which I'm not going to pack up right away, are my display books because I do have some videos to film, so I wanted to have those in my background. But I have these little tiny acrylic stands and the books just sit on them, and typically I will sort of stack the books a little, like sort of like a book tree, and then I'll put this on top and I can add different like sizes and different levels so that, you know, it just adds some dimension to my table instead of being just like flat. People have to look over books to see books. I like to have like a nice display where, you know, someone could walk by potentially and be like, that's something I want to look at, or it's something I don't want to look at, and no awkward conversations. As you can tell, I don't like anything awkward. Let me know in the comments if you have any tips or tricks for in-person events. I would love to continue to hone my process. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell next to it so you know the next time I upload, and I'll see you tomorrow.